What's up, guys? Welcome to Knockers on the Bottom. I'm your host, Jay Mill. Jay Mill, if you like. So let's get into it. So today, the Dallas Cowboys take on the Philadelphia Eagles for the second time this season. This is going to be a very interesting matchup because we're a lot different than we were at the beginning of the season. And honestly, the Eagles are different than what they were at the beginning of the season. In that first game, the Cowboys hadn't played much of their starters in the preseason. So not a lot of teams knew exactly what to expect from their offense. And then also not what to expect from their defense. Although it was probably a little bit easier to figure out what was going to happen with their defense, considering Eberflus has a history of playing a cover two scheme that is mostly zone and rushing four and dropping back the rest in coverage. So even though there wasn't really a large book out on him with the Cowboys, there was definitely a large book out on him as far as what he liked to do. Now, in this week, it's going to be a little bit different. The Eagles now have Jalen Carter, who didn't play in that first game, and then they have Phillips, who they got from a trade with the Miami Dolphins. And Phillips has made an instant impact. Also, Nakobe Dean didn't play in that first game. He's there now, too. So the Eagles, like the Cowboys, have an influx of talent on the defensive side that didn't necessarily play week one that is going to definitely impact the game. On the Cowboy side, defensively, we didn't have Quinnen Williams. We didn't have Logan Wilson. A lot of the players were early on in their scheme. Trayvon Diggs is playing. He's not playing now. We didn't have Carson. We didn't have Revel. So, we didn't have Overshown. Those are all players that are going to be playing this week in the game that are also going to make a difference for the Cowboys. So now to get into a little bit more of the specifics, the Eagles' offense is very pedestrian so far this year. Now, the Cowboys were able to shut them down in the second half of that first game. After the weather delay. Don't expect that today. It's going to be AT&T Stadium. The roof's going to be maybe a little bit open, but probably closed because I know the weather in Texas has been a little bit up and down lately. So you don't have to worry about any of that stuff as far as weather delays. Some of the things that the Eagles are struggling with are, running with the running back, offensive line injuries, wide receiver one not being on the same page with the quarterback, and honestly not getting the ball to Devontae Smith as much as they should. Now, I don't want the Eagles to wake up this week and decide, hey, against the Cowboys, you know what? We do want to get the ball to Devontae Smith. We do want to run our offense through him and Dallas Goedert and kind of let A.J. Brown just bitch and moan and be over to the side, and we'll get him if he's open. But if not, sorry, guys. And then because of that, now it starts to open up a little bit, and Saquon Barkley does actually get to see holes, and, Jalen Hurts is scrambling off the edge like he did in the first game. I do think with the addition of Overshown and then with the better play of Ezaraku, hopefully that'll help the Cowboys contain the edge a little bit more. Also, I think what will help is less Sam Williams. There's been less Sam Williams the last few weeks. And I think it'll help a lot because in that first game, he was really crashing down hard inside and just leaving the gaps wide open for Jalen Hurts. A lot of times what we used to do with these rushing quarterbacks and what I'm going to implore the Cowboys to do today, you let your middle guys rush hard, right? But your edge guys have to come up and form a cup around Jalen Hurts. You can't just let Jalen Hurts have the edges collapse and be able to get to the outside and run for those yards. If you can cover up a lot of those guards in the center, with your 5 down linemen, but you can even do it with 4 linemen. You don't necessarily have to have 5 linemen to cover up the guards in the center. You can cover up the guards in the center, and then you can have on the strong side of the defense, your edge kind of set the edge a little farther to the outside, and then still have your 2 linebackers out there, especially since you have some speed with Overshown and some knowledge with Logan Wilson, and then still play your cornerbacks in cover. So you can still play a nickel defense, and you can still line up and cover those guys on the inside, and then kind of have that guy to the outside. There's a lot of the misnomer. I hear a lot of the media talking about 5 down linemen and making sure you cover up everybody, right? So everybody has a one-on-one. You don't necessarily necessarily have to do that. There's other ways to scheme so that you can have plenty of guys in coverage, because that's where Jalen Hurts struggles the most. And with the Cowboys' added speed and added experience at the second level, as opposed to what they have been playing with, I think that is a game plan for success. Now, they can do the 5-down lineman too, but I don't think they should employ that a ton this game, because I think that'll be a mistake, especially if someone like Saquon Barkley gets through the first wave of defenders and now he's at the second level. I mean, Overshown is a short tackler and Logan Wilson is a short tackler, but still, when you have a great running back, all it takes is for him to make one guy miss, and we know how the speed of Saquon Barkley works in the open field. He destroys angles. He's hard to break down. Dude has freaking hams for thighs. So you just don't want, to let that guy kind of get a head of steam going, and then all of a sudden it turns into the Saquon Barkley breakout game of the season. So I think the Cowboys on defense should mix it up. I don't think you should blitz Jalen Hurts. He's actually pretty decent against the blitz, and he doesn't turn the ball over, right? He only has one interception on the season, and that came a long time ago. If you're going to get interceptions on Jalen Hurts, it's going to be because you're forcing him to stay in the pocket after you rush and have that cup of contain. You're playing zone on the back end, and you're forcing him to kind of hold it and read things, and then trying to maybe he'll take sacks. That's the other thing too, is he won't necessarily get rid of the ball. So it's going to be hard to intercept him, because he's fine taking a sack, or he's fine getting back to the line for no gain and punting the ball, because their defense is playing so outstanding. So you're going to really have to just be patient on defense this game. This is going to be one of those games where I feel like there's going to be a lot of punts by both teams. And both teams, are probably game planning to the point of, we need to stay patient. If we're not getting it on offense, we can't just and start throwing the ball and, taking deep shots and stuff like that, because both of these teams, as far as the Eagles, they have a good defense that will, force some turnovers if you start to get impatient like that. And then as far as the Eagles, if they start getting impatient like that, Jalen Hurts will, take some more sacks and take them out of, field goal range, and they'll have to continue to punt the ball instead of hopefully playing that field position game and then being able to get scores where they can. So I'm not saying the Cowboys defense will all of a sudden, turn into a turnover machine, but if Jalen Hurts, starts getting impatient and starts to try to take deep shot after deep shot, which means he's holding the ball, he's not going to be able to see it well enough to, make the Cowboys pay. So on the flip side of things, for the Cowboys offense, I feel like we need to be patient and run the football. I know that sounds like, cliche football 101, but it's so true. And then also the Eagles, for all the awesomeness on their defense, they are very bad against play action. So, or I won't say bad. They're like lower middle tier. I think they're 18th. On yards per attempt and yards per catch on play action. So it's a area of their defense that you can exploit, but you should pick your shots, right? I don't think you should spam play action, because then I don't think it'll be as effective. But I think the Cowboys, unlike week one, the Cowboys now have the respect of the league as far as the run game. But the problem is they have Pickens and Lamb on the outside. So even though teams respect their run game, if it comes down to which one you're going to give up, teams would rather give up the running yards and then say, okay, now that you're across the 50-yard line, and with each, first down that you get, the field starts to shrink, go ahead. Don't make a mistake. You're not going to get this ball to Pickens. You're not going to get this ball to Lamb. You're going to have to stay patient and run this ball in. I do think one of the keys to the game here could be Jake Ferguson. Fergie hasn't been explosive after the catch, but for the Cowboys offense in this game, I honestly think whichever tight end wins the battle, that's probably what team is going to win the battle. Because, like I said, Jalen Hurts is going to have a hard time throwing the ball. Dak Prescott, I believe, is going to have a hard time throwing the ball, because I think both of these defenses are going to be able to game plan. The Eagles defense is by far better than the Cowboys defense. So they're going to give Dak Prescott a hard time as far as talent is concerned. I think the Eagles, their quarterback has a hard time in that area. So I think the Cowboys are going to catch a break as far as the Eagles are going to have a hard time based on who their quarterback is. So both teams, I think, are going to struggle throwing the football. I honestly think both teams are actually going to struggle running the football. I've been seeing a lot of media personalities to switch to predictions and picks now, picking this game like 30-27, 27-24. That is not going to happen. If for some reason this game ends up being a 30-27 game, the Cowboys are winning that game. Like, if any team scoring 30 points, it's Dallas. So it's weird to me that I've seen all these high score picks. I honestly think this is going to be like a defensive high punt, low, like this is a Brandon Aubrey game. This is a whoever the kicker is for the Eagles game. I didn't look it up. I'm pretty sure if I looked it up, I probably know who the kicker is. It's just slipping my mind right now. But this is not going to be one of those games. You got, Jordan Davis in the middle, and you got Jalen Carter in the middle. You got Phillips on the edge. You have Dean and Bond on the second level. You have DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell, and then you have Makuba back there. Like, the Eagles defense is so strong, so strong. There's just no chance. And then with the Cowboys, you have the Jalen Hurts factor. So I really can't see the Eagles or the Cowboys rattling off 4 to 5 touchdowns apiece. It just doesn't make sense. So I think this is going to be one of those games where Brandon Aubrey has like 4 to 5 field goals. And same thing, the Eagles kicker has 3 to 4 field goals. I think if there's a touchdown by either team, it'll probably be 1 to 2 at most. Maybe the Eagles get 1 to 2 touchdowns. Maybe the Cowboys get 1 to 2 touchdowns because the Eagles are really good once they reach the red zone. They don't get there often, but once they do, they score touchdowns on 75% of their possession. So if they get there, there's a good chance they'll put a touchdown on the board. The Cowboys aren't as good at the Eagles in the red zone. They're more middle of the pack. I think they're like 13th, but they still score at like 61, 62% of their red zone possessions. They score touchdowns. So they're not a bad red zone team either. So if either team gets down there, more often than not, they score touchdowns. So I got this game going maybe 19-17. And I'm picking the Cowboys here. I honestly think the Cowboys are going to win this game. Now, 19-17 means it's maybe 16-17 in the fourth quarter, and Brandon Aubrey gets a walk-off field goal to win the game. But I do think it's going to be that type of game. Or it's going to be, 19 to 14, and the Eagles go get a field goal, and the Cowboys have to have the ball last to run it out, and they're able to maybe get a random first down, something to Pickens or something to Fergie. But whatever tight end is better in this game, I think that's how the game is going to be won and lost. I think that's where the matchup favors whatever team's tight end can have the bigger day, because Goddard, he's a good guy, and I want to see what the Cowboys do as a plan. Do you put Overshown on him? Do you, walk down Revel and have him run with him, in specific situations, especially third downs, but I think that's going to be pretty much the key to the game. But I got the Cowboys winning today, 19-17, and they go into the Thanksgiving game against the Chiefs at 500. And everybody's kind of talking this week about how the Cowboys are back, even though I don't know if I necessarily agree with that either. But that's all I got for you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hit me up on Twitter at jmilleriyl. Hit me up at knockersonthebottom at outlook.com, knockersonthebottom at gmail.com. Any questions, any comments, leave them below. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. Again, I love you guys. Until next time, I'm your host, J Mill if you like. This has been Knockers Down the Bottom. Peace.